Welcome back to another video, and today I would like to introduce you to the first episode of the Start to Finish series. My name is Mark, and I'm here to take you on the journey. And as every journey goes, there's always a start to it. So I'm here to help you go from where you are now to becoming a better version of yourself who is doing the things you enjoy doing in your own life. So today, I'm finally taking this moment, since ironically I am talking about starting, to start making this video on how do you start something. Now, if you have watched my first ever video on my YouTube channel, it was my first video that I've ever uploaded to YouTube as a vlog talking to you, where I mentioned the importance of just starting. When you start something new in your life, it is obviously not always going to be easy. So let's say you want to begin your own business, or working on a project, or writing an essay, or, the most common example, doing a sport. You're going to the gym for the first time. You're finally going to the gym, you're hitting the iron, you're pumping it up, whether you're gonna do some weight training, or you'd be doing some long distance running on the track, seeing how many pull-ups you can do, or how many push-ups, or let's say just running, or as my personal favorite example, stand-up paddleboarding. So let's say you're doing paddleboarding for the first time in your life, and paddleboarding is by now one of my favorite activities to do on the side. It's this large board, kind of like a surfboard, that is very long and quite thick. So it can come inflatable. The details here don't matter for now. So let's say you start paddleboarding for the first time, where you slide it into the water, you hop on it, and suddenly in the first 5 seconds you flip over and you splash into the freezing cold water. Now some people are able to stand up longer, some people need more time to get used to it. And I myself, I remember when I started paddleboarding for the first time ever, it was quite some time ago, almost 10 years ago, where I was at the summer camp in Switzerland, and we were a whole bunch of international students from around the world. I just got out of high school, and that was less than 10 years ago. I was 18 at the time. We just got out of high school, and we went on this cool summer trip where we did a lot of fun activities in the outdoors. We ran at each other in the forest, playing capture the flag. That's all war paint style. I painted my face red, since I was red team, and we were against the blue team. So almost like Hunger Games style, I decided to just take it a little further. So I painted my face, war paint, and would sneak through the forest under the logs, hopping from tree to tree, and then just run for it, once I see my target, or we could just face the enemy and go for an attack. But yeah, that's some fun shit I did not often get to do in my childhood. Which brings me to doing things for the first time. On one of the last days of this camping trip, we were taken out on an expedition to start doing some fun activities, and I chose to do paddle boarding. We were on the edge of this lake, and there were two things I did on that day for the first time. One was the paddleboarding itself, and I was actually surprised I was able to keep myself up without falling on that day. But there's a key to that, which I'll get into soon. And the other thing I did for the first time was jump off a 9-meter high diving board. Like when you're at a pool, when you go to certain pools, they would have these diving platforms, which sometimes go like 1 meter, 2 meters, maybe in some places they have like 5 meters. So at the edge of that lake, there was a diving platform with 2 levels. One was at 4 and the other was at 9. 9 meters high. I remember on that day, we walked up, we walked up the platform, and for some reason, like this is not to brag, for some reason, as they were explaining to us how you can jump off something of this high, they were telling us the dangers of landing in a pool of water. Like what happens if you land in the water from such a height, at such speeds, and if you impact the surface when you're really flat. You gotta be super careful, because there were experiments. What they would do is they would drop a watermelon from a certain height, and once they drop it and it impacts the surface of the water, it splits open. That could happen to you if you do not land yourself properly. I mean, have you seen what happens to people who get a really nice belly flop or back flop, in those fail videos, and then it's like, oh shit, like everyone's going like, oh fuck, dude. The guy comes out, he's like, fuck, my back is burning. Hey, maybe this happened to you, It happened to me. But to avoid this, like one of the key tips they tell you is, when you jump from a certain height that you're not ready to dive in properly from, just do the pencil dive. You cross your arms, you're getting ready to jump, or you can have your arms like straight by your sides, and you just hop on in, keeping your body straight, and you allow yourself, like a pencil. You're kind of looking like a penguin at this point. So you kind of put yourself up like this, and then you just hop in. So because they gave a certain instruction, I thought, all right, you know what? I'm ready to do this. So I climbed up to the top of the 9-meter platform, and it took me about 2 minutes to get it together. And I finally did it. I took the leap. How many times have you heard in your life that if you are to step into something new, into something unfamiliar, into something big, it's a leap of faith. All you gotta do is jump. Even though on that day I knew how to jump, the simple fact that I jumped and went for it opened up something inside of me. There weren't that many of us who, took the chance to jump from that 9-meter platform. But I was glad I was one of them. How often did you feel like that when you did something for the first time? Your first jump into a pool, your first score of a basketball in the hoop, your first goal with a football, the first time you swam a certain distance, the first time you asked someone out and you actually went on a successful date, the first time you ran all the way, from one side of the neighborhood to the other, or even the first time you held your breath. Just like, if you're a kid in the pool and, I guess many of us may have done this. If you ever did this, put down in the comments what was one of the biggest things you felt awesome about when you did it the first time. It could be holding your breath underwater for more than a minute. When you're a kid in the pool and you're like, yeah, like you get the point. When you do something like this for the first time and you make it through, it's like, I'm still here. I'm still fucking here, Like, this is awesome. It feels empowering. It feels empowering to yourself when you know you were able to do this. Even if it was not perfect the first time you did. Do you have any idea how awesome it felt standing up on my paddleboard for the first time and keeping my balance? Because when you step onto a paddleboard for the first time and you're getting used to it, you don't stand up straight away. So this is the whole idea I was going to tell you about that day when doing paddleboarding. You line it up. You always start with your knees. You're in position and you're on your knees, a position of the board that keeps you balanced and central. They will teach you how to do this. I'm not your paddleboard instructor, unless you pay me for it. Nah, just kidding. So you step onto the paddle in a way that you will feel a balance with the center of gravity. The two key reasons why they teach you to be on your knees first is not just because it's also like you must crawl before you can walk, but it's also for safety. You're not going to be standing up right next to the shore where you could like tip over and you fall straight. The water is usually shallower when you first get in from the shore. So the higher you are in your position, the deeper you fall into the water. So higher likelihood of injury. When you start something for the first time, always start slow, bite-sized chunks, little by little, baby steps. So you start slowly rowing out, and then once you're in deeper waters and you know it's safe enough if you fall into the water, you can slowly start standing up. You hold on to the board, you place a foot, and then you make sure that that you're not tipping the balance. And then you're up. You're just paddling away. Whenever some waves come in, such as like the water waves from a boat passing by, or from one of your best friends, just being a being a douche, trying to tip you over. One key is to, of course, stabilize your stance, but also one very cool safety tip is you immediately get back on your knees again. So you're stable again, your center of gravity is held in. The whole point of this example is that when you take your time learning the key fundamentals of doing something for the first time, you are better at easing into it. And when you do it for the first time, you feel stronger, more empowered, and you say, you can do this. You say to yourself, I can do this. Same thing with running, maybe if you're if you do it for the first time, you might do 200 meters, and you get a little tired. But the more often you do it, day by day or every couple of days, you're able to go for a longer and longer distance, longer and longer time, without getting exhausted. Same thing with writing a paper. And this is actually something I'm struggling with right now. At the moment, I'm working on my thesis here at my university. And as a skilled procrastinator, which I've seen myself for a while, that is the story I'm telling myself, I have still barely gone through the first writing phases of writing the report itself. And I have less than 2 months, than a month and a half to finish with it. That way, once I'm done with that and other parts of my university, I will be able to make more videos. So that's one of the reasons why content is still kind of slow at the moment. But in the end, but we are not at the end, starting something is one of the most important parts of doing anything, because nothing will begin without a beginning. Nothing will come into existence without you starting something to do about it. So with that being said, this was part 1 of starting. Part 2 of how to start coming up. You have an awesome day. Peace out.